Sorry, 18. Your time is up.
Not yet.
Look out!
Though often forgotten about in modern dialogues about the different games based on the popular anime, Dragon Ball Z Budokai is 100% one of the most important Dragon Ball Z games ever released, specifically because it's the first game most of us here in North America ever got the chance to see or play. Until this game released on December 4th, 2002, the only Dragon Ball related games available to North American audiences were Dragon Ball Z The Legacy of Goku for the Game Boy Advance, which released earlier that same year, and Dragon Ball GT Final Bout for the Sony PlayStation. So this is, realistically speaking, the first real Dragon Ball Z video game most people even had the chance to play here. Thanks to American publisher Infro Games, Budokai was made available to Western audiences to enjoy and only helped aid in the franchise's momentous rise to global popularity. Probably the most recognizable aspect of this North American release at the time was that it's the first ever Dragon Ball Z game to utilize the same voice actors from the Funimation dub of the anime. By this point, the iconic voices of Chris Sabat and Sean Schmiel had become as synonymous with Western audiences' idea of the characters as something like David Hayter in Solid Snake or Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
After all those innocent lives you took, you want me to spare you? Why should I give you the mercy you've never shown anyone?
So when Infro Games got the Funimation actors on board to dub the Western release of the game, it really helped solidify this as a genuine adaptation of the exciting anime that we'd all become so attached to at the time. Although Budokai was developed and released initially for the Sony PlayStation 2, it was refined and ported to the Nintendo GameCube a year later. The only real difference between the two versions being the inclusion of cel-shaded technology on the GameCube release. Well, that in the case of the GameCube version displayed the Atari logo as the publisher due to Infro Games changing their name to Atari following a merger between the companies. For this video, I'm going with the PS2 release as that's the way I first experienced the game back in the day. As you are seeing on the screen, Budokai features a 100% true 3D gameplay experience with fully rendered models for every character and 3D backgrounds to fight on. While this isn't exactly groundbreaking in comparison to a lot of the other fighting games back then, it's only the second attempt from the franchise at adopting a fully 3D video game, the first being the much maligned Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. So getting to boot up and play a fully 3D DBZ fighting game that actually functions was pretty novel at the time of its release. The original Budokai was by all means the cornerstone for what would become one of the most prolific and successful Dragon Ball video game franchises, and really drew the blueprint that several later entries would continue to refine. So I'm excited to have you join me as we get into it and break down what makes Dragon Ball Z Budokai so special. Now, normally in my retrospectives, I dedicate this section to extensively examining the game's plot progression, narrative, and overall storyline. However, this game, like most Dragon Ball games, just retells the same story from the anime. So for this video I'm changing it up a bit. Rather than just retell the whole plot of the anime but essentially in the form of a game, we'll be looking at how the game handles the different battles it does adapt, what it changes, what it adds, what it leaves out, and overall what it does right. The thing I find the most interesting about the story mode in Budokai is that it's split into two different parts for some reason, and you don't really know that about it going in. In fact, I was so confused by this that when I played through the first part of the story mode, I was constantly thinking to myself how weird some of the decisions of what battles to cover were. More on that as we progress. One of the coolest things about owning a copy of Budokai back in the day was that you essentially owned a way to experience the whole anime from the Saiyan saga all the way to the end of the Cell Game saga. I'd even go as far as to say you'll spend more time watching cutscenes in the story mode than you will actually just playing the game itself. Because before and after pretty much every battle, you're treated to a fully 3D rendered rendition of all of the biggest moments from the anime. The team behind Budokai clearly wanted to offer players a way to genuinely feel as if they were really playing through the show itself, which, let me tell you, a lot of you watching may not even know what this sensation I'm about to describe to you is. But there is a reason being able to play through the anime like this mattered back in 2002. There were no streaming services or Blu-ray collections. If you wanted to watch Dragon Ball Z, pretty much the only thing you could do was try to be in front of your television when Toonami happened to be airing an episode of DBZ for you to watch. You couldn't decide when you watched it, and you couldn't decide where in the anime you were watching, which meant that growing up, lots of us missed out on entire seasons of the show. The other way you could potentially watch Dragon Ball Z was by getting your hands on one of the VHS home video releases of it. These were pretty common, at least where I was from, but if you did manage to get one of them, they'd only have 3 episodes per tape. So I did manage to collect a good dozen or so of these tapes thanks to my very understanding parents, but again, that equates to like less than 50 episodes, if I'm assuming I had more than 12. Not to mention, only a few of them were actually in order, much less in the same saga. I had mostly tapes from the Buu sagas, with a few from the Android saga. No Cell, no Frieza, no Saiyan. I'd say a little less than half of them were from GT as well, because that's what was being pushed in the US at the time. All of that is to say that I, like I assume millions of other kids, got the majority of their understanding of the Dragon Ball Z show from playing these games. They filled in blanks that we hadn't actually seen ourselves. So the fact that the team put this much time into making these cutscenes look so polished is very much appreciated from someone like me who grew up with things like this. Back to the game, I hope you'll notice just how well this game holds up graphically. I mean, it's probably due to the art style, but I feel like this game looks damn good. The character models are all designed in a way that lets them feel like they were kind of ripped out of the pages of the manga and made 3D. It's really cool, at least to me. As I mentioned earlier, this game tells its story across 2 parts, the first part being centered nearly exclusively around battles involving Goku. This is where I want to talk about those strange decisions I mentioned earlier. So, when you start the story mode, it just kind of throws you into the Saiyan Saga, which is great, and you battle Raditz as Goku for your first fight. Helps you learn the controls, familiarize yourself with the flow of combat, etc. But then after you beat that fight, something weird happens. You have to play a minigame. What you're seeing on the screen is me holding Raditz still while Piccolo charges his special beam cannon. You have to use rotations of the analog stick to keep him still while Goku holds him. Okay, minigames are fun sometimes. What's weird about that, you ask? Well, I'll tell you, it never happens again. Throughout the entire rest of this first part of the story mode, not only do you never play this particular minigame again, there are no more minigames, period. What's even weirder is that there is one more instance of this minigame after you beat the first part of the story mode. When you go to part 2 of the story, it lets you play this whole scenario from Piccolo's perspective, and you have to charge your special beam cannon in a certain amount of time. It's another minigame in the same context as the last one, but with slightly different execution. And after this, once again, you never see another minigame. This is so weird to me. There's 2 minigames, only 2, and they both happen at the start of each story mode part and only involve the death of Raditz. The only reason for this that I can muster is that this game was expecting to be in development for longer and cut some things to make its release window. I mean, that's why I figure it only goes up to the Cell Game saga in its story. The whole series had resolved by this point, so it's not like they didn't know about Buu, and there's art in the game that shows the fight between Goku and Majin Vegeta. So yeah, I'm figuring this little minigame is a relic from when the developers were hoping to add more throughout the game, but ended up cutting them. There's more strange decisions, however, like why did they bother cutting the story mode into 2 parts like this? So when you play the first part of the story, it just takes you automatically through only Goku's scenarios. Before I realized that there was going to be more story unlocked, I was playing through this part utterly perplexed.
Huh? What? Jump!
You fight Raditz, then Nappa, then Vegeta, all as Goku. I thought I was figuring it out by this point since we skipped the non-Goku fights, but then all of a sudden we get a mission playing as Gohan against Vegeta. Okay, so we are doing non-Goku encounters because I'm playing as Kid Gohan right here. But then we go right back to Goku again. And they have us play through multiple battles, training us on different techniques using Goku's training on the way to Namek as the explanation. But this totally skips all of the conflicts Vegeta, Gohan, and Krillin faced while on Namek. We've seen they'll let us play as Gohan, so why not now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were starting. Here, allow me.
Well, we only play Goku's battles through the entire Namek saga, and into the Android saga where we get to play as Piccolo fighting Cell in Android 17. Okay, why? You haven't let us play as Piccolo one time so far, but now all of a sudden we can? Okay, I thought to myself, well, we're definitely going to play as Goku and Gohan training in the hyperbolic time chamber. Nope, we skip straight to the Cell games. We fight Cell as Goku once, then as Gohan 3 times as the cutscenes retell the story from the show. Which, I mean, yeah, that makes sense to let us play as Gohan for this part, but why did we play as him in the Saiyan saga one time, then not once between these two instances? Of course, after beating the game and watching the credits roll, you unlock the second part of the story, which fills in a bunch of those gaps. You can go back in and play as Piccolo against the Saiyans, then as Vegeta during the Namek saga, where we get to fight Zarbon, Recoome, and Frieza. Then the Android saga gives us the Vegeta fights against 19, 18, and Cell, where we even see Super Vegeta's transformation. It's not all of the relevant fights, but it feels a lot closer to what I was expecting going in. Of course, my big question is, why did they do this? Why did they cut it into 2 parts like that? If it was only Goku and Gohan's perspectives in the first part, I think I would have understood a little better. But then we also play as Piccolo in the first part. And it's not like the 2 parts are in any way equal in length. The first part took me roughly 2.5 hours to complete, while the second part ran me just over an hour and 15. Which means if they had moved the Piccolo fights from the Android saga from the first part into the second part like the Piccolo fights in the Saiyan saga, that would have balanced things out a lot more. If anyone down in the comments has any idea or insight as to why they broke the campaign up like this, please help me out here. The presentation of the story mode is pretty cool, honestly, as each saga is treated like its own season, and each fight like its own episode. They even name the episodes and give them neat little titles like you'd see in the anime. After you beat one of the seasons, you're given a little end video with what to expect from the next one. And they even have the same narrator doing the voiceovers like in the show. It's really a spectacular way to tell this story. The last thing I want to say about the story mode is that each season also ends on a what-if scenario regarding the villain of that arc. In the Saiyan saga, we end on a what-if Vegeta beat Goku, and we get to play as Vegeta basically annihilating Goku, Gohan, and Krillin. Then he gets mad about having to kill Nappa and turns Super Saiyan. Okay, yeah, that bit is pretty forced. The Namek saga what-if has Frieza actually beating Super Saiyan Goku, and then getting to the Namekian Dragon Balls in time to wish himself immortality. Then we see him blow up a galaxy and head towards Earth to blow it up as well. Then, lastly, we get a Cell what-if, where we play as Cell fighting the androids to become perfect, only for him to nearly absorb 18, when...
No, not you! What are you doing? No! That freak is gonna pay for what he did to Krillin!
Yeah, I gotta give them props on creativity. This is something I'd have never thought of. We play as Cell absorbing Krillin, which made him significantly weaker somehow. We then fight Yamcha and Tien, who give us some real trouble. This is all before Cell suddenly wakes up, revealing it all to be a dream as he waited to fight in his own Cell games. This doesn't really make sense though, because Cell absorbs literally hundreds of people throughout the show, and it all only boosts his power. I don't think this would even happen. Maybe they're implying it's different if he opens his tail? I'm not sure. I don't think it works like a fusion as this game is suggesting, but who cares? It's hilarious. We gotta talk about the cutscenes now. I've been bringing them up a lot. For what we're working with here, these cinematics are really impressively handled. Like I mentioned before, the choreography and cinematography is well done and reflects the show appropriately. There are a few issues here though, mainly the facial animations and close-ups. Sometimes the camera will do a close-up of just a character's mouth, but the mouth and models in general aren't really like the most impressive ever. I mean, they're polygonal models on a PS2 in 2002. It's probably not a great idea to get super close to these models. As for the facial animations, they're passable most of the time, but every now and then, they'll let out a scream or something, and, well, you get one of these comedy gold bits I've been playing every so often. Overall, I really feel like this was a critical turning point for Dragon Ball games, because during that time, there was nothing even close to what this game offers. A true way to experience the events of the anime through a series of well-animated cutscenes featuring the voice cast we all already knew and loved. More importantly, the chance to play through all of the most iconic battles of the series ourselves, and even experience a healthy dose of what-if scenarios to chew on. The story mode here still holds up pretty well, and I'm happy to attest to its aging even better. While I don't know if I'd recommend it over some of its successors, it's still definitely one of the best Dragon Ball Z campaigns available. The single biggest downside I'd say is the total absence of the Buu sagas. While I acknowledge that they're not everyone's favorite, they are mine, and some of the coolest and most memorable moments didn't even occur until then, leaving this game feeling totally incomplete and like it's missing an entire final act. That is what I would say is really holding this story mode back, in my opinion. All in all, still a great way to experience a Dragon Ball Z game. Hey guys, just a quick interruption to talk about something both important to me and relevant to the video. This isn't like a sponsored thing, but I do have a deal with a gym attire brand called SuperX. They specialize in gym and workout clothing inspired by your favorite heroes and legends, and they've even dabbled in some Dragon Ball Z gear before. Going to the gym is a very important part of my life, and it is beyond crucial in keeping your body healthy, your hormones regulated, and ensuring you're always striving and training to become better and stronger. There's no point in consuming media to kill time, so I like to cover things like Dragon Ball Z because they make me excited to work out, to lift weights and keep training, chasing that same passion and drive I see in these characters. So we watch to inspire rather than to entertain. If you've been hoping for some slick new gear to wear into the gym, this is one of the best brands out there right now. Using my code EVANT876 shown on the screen, you get 10% off any purchase, and I receive a small commission to help me out continuing the channel as well. So don't waste any more time. Get your gear, get in the gym, and start training. After completing the game's story mode, we've got a handful of other offerings to examine, the most important of those being the World Martial Arts Tournament mode. It's what it sounds like. The game randomly selects a handful of contestants and pits them against each other in a series of increasingly more difficult bouts. Honestly, the menu design for the whole thing is fantastic. I love how polished it all feels, and the execution is even pretty good. When you first boot up the game, you only have access to the first of 3 categories, that being Novice. The Novice category contains 3 battles, all of which you have to beat in order to win the tournament and secure your 10,000 zenny. The purpose of that 10,000 zenny will be covered later. Now, I expected to play through this mode, unlock the next mode, and proceed from there. Well, to my surprise, following my completion of the Novice tournament, the remaining 2 tournaments were still locked. Turns out you have to go to Budokai's in-game shop and buy the other 2 tournament categories, which is what the 10,000 zenny we just won is for. Oh man, I need to talk about this in-game shop. It's so awful, and almost everything in the game is locked behind this shop, and almost all of it is only obtainable randomly. Mr. Popo's shop provides a handful of different options, but the only one that really matters is the bottom option, the Recommended tab, and we'll get to the character customization in a minute. You have to go through this shop for everything, including the other 2 World Tournament categories we need. Here's the thing, they don't appear as purchasable options until after you've beaten the story mode, both parts of it. So when I beat part 1 and the credits rolled, I thought I was done and went to play this mode next, only to realize I couldn't advance past the Novice category. So I was pretty confused as to what was going on. After I realized there was essentially a whole second part of the story mode, I went back in and played through all of that. Then wouldn't you know it, the Adept Tournament category was suddenly purchasable. So I got that, went back in, and started the grind of that mode. It's pretty much the same as the Novice category, exception being that we now must progress through 4 fights rather than 3. Also, it pays more zenny, 25,000 to the winner instead of 10,000. A pretty substantial increase for a single additional fight. As you're seeing on screen, I played through these with a few different characters, but Vegeta is obviously my favorite character, so I tend to lean heavy on him when I play a Dragon Ball game. Once we complete the Adept category, we can head back to Popo's shop, and lucky us, the Advanced category is now available, along with the other game mode called The Legend of Hercule. We'll get to that later as well. The Advanced category is the final and hardest of the tournaments, and features 5 total battles with a reward of 50,000 zenny. So if you just love the character customization of this game, you can play through this mode a few times to get rich on zenny. If you're good at the game, that is. I did manage to beat the Advanced tournament, but I'll be blunt, it was a very frustrating endeavor. Full disclosure, I'm not like the best fighting game player out there. I'm good enough to play through the games I enjoy and have a good time, but I'd be slaughtered by anyone who actually knows what they're doing in a fighting game. So that being said, I really have no idea if this game is actually good or not. Like, I know I have a lot of fun when the game is on easier levels, but when the difficulty increases to a certain degree, it feels like I can't actually even play it sometimes. I get locked into combos or forced into situations where it feels like I couldn't have gotten out of it. I even started to feel like the game is reading my inputs to react at times, like when you're on the floor waiting for your character to get up and you're mashing the move you want him to make when he finally does get up, then the AI reacts perfectly as if it knew exactly what you were going to do and counters it. It's incredibly frustrating, but again, I am open to the possibility that I'm just not as proficient in this game's mechanics as I'd need to be to handle these moments. Okay, so we've beaten all 3 available World Tournament modes. What's next? Well, we need to talk now about the character customization. Budokai features a mode where the player can collect all kinds of different items, skills, and attacks, then create their theoretically ideal iteration of their favorite character. This is pretty much the primary purpose for Popo's in-game shop. All of these skills and items are locked behind this shop, and pretty much all of them have to be obtained by what is essentially gambling. Not gambling with real money, mind you, but you basically have to just keep either buying items or buying random capsules, hoping that you get a good item. And there are so many items. I'm pretty sure you can have up to 9 of all of the same of most of these items, which means you have to just keep buying or sifting through the same low-tier skills over and over. There is something of an exploit available where you can just back out of the shop and go back into it over and over until you get the items you want. But let me just say, that is utterly exhausting. I want to emphasize that word too. Exhausting. Which brings me to the Dragon Balls. Yeah, this game features a mechanic where you can find and collect all 7 Dragon Balls, then summon Shenron to grant a wish. Which, I mean, that's a really cool idea. I love that. The true spirit of the show, you know? Guess how you find them? Yeah, we have to just hope they appear in Popo's shop. To add on to that, I'm pretty confident my game just straight up glitched out and won't give me the last damn Dragon Ball I need. I secured all 6 of the others within roughly a 30-minute period the first night I played this. And then spent, I am not kidding, hours on top of hours over the next 2 days after that, trying over and over to get it to give me that last Dragon Ball. I even started buying all of the cheap items, hoping I could just deplete the shop of literally anything else to sell me, which I read online you can do, but it was again just exhausting the hell out of me.
Welcome. I'll sell you. Thank you for buying. Come again. Welcome. I'll bye-bye. Welcome. I'll sell you all. Bye-bye. Welcome. I'll sell you. Thank you for buying. Come again. Welcome. I'll thank you for buying. Come again. Welcome. I'll bye-bye.
I still don't quite understand what was going on with the game, dude, but I got so frustrated that I just downloaded cheats into my emulator and basically forced the game to give me the damn Dragon Balls so I could summon Shenron and have footage of it for the video. You might be wondering what wishes you can get granted by the Great Green Dragon. What is our reward for slogging through that giant misstep of a mechanic? Well, you can pick one of 3 randomly chosen characters to have a breakthrough capsule, which essentially just means that character will have access to all of their moves at once, which is a cool feature since normally you couldn't have all of them at once as there aren't enough item slots for the characters. The downside is that this one capsule takes up all of your available slots, so no senzu beans or armor or anything. So it is a neat idea. My only problem with this is that If by some horrifying chance my experience is at all indicative of what the average player experienced, then it's just not worth it. By the time you even got a breakthrough, much less grinded Shinron enough to get the breakthrough for the character you actually want, you'll have played the game so much it wouldn't even be fun anymore. You'll be over it, sick of it even. Just a half-decent idea for several mechanics that all collide in the most infuriating way imaginable for this game, man. And it's really a shame because I see what they were going for. Okay, with all of that said, let's talk about the hidden unlockable mode, The Legend of Hercule. This one is, well, interesting? Here's the breakdown. You've got 3 difficulties to choose from, just like the World Martial Arts Tournament: Novice, Adept, and Advanced. This determines how hard the AI will try to essentially demolish you because, full disclosure, this is the hardest mode in the game. You'll have to play as Hercule and fight through a series of characters without losing in order to complete the mode. That's 11 consecutive battles, each one with a different handicap to overcome to win. These handicaps range from slower charging ki to starting with way less health overall and all kinds of different things. I'm not even going to try and pretend here. This mode is brutal. It is probably the way to make the most Zenny at once though, as after every battle you accumulate a bunch of points as seen here on screen, and if you actually finish the mode, those points are turned into Zenny to spend at Popo's shop. The catch, of course, is that you can't spend it if you fail to beat the mode, which means you might get all the way to the last match, lose, and all of the points just disappear. This is incredibly frustrating. But I do see what they were going for with the challenge paying off with a big reward. It's a really bizarre mode, and it even comes complete with fully animated cutscenes and voice acting too. Like, this was really a mode they started, developed, and fully integrated into the game. It's not a bad mode, but I have to wonder, why was this implemented over something perhaps more fun? Maybe another minigame in the campaign, or another character or two to play with, or something. I don't hate the mode or anything, but I really don't feel like this game is polished enough to justify the time and resources that must have gone into designing and integrating this entire hidden game mode. I just don't get it. And the game really could have used another cool character or two, especially some cool hidden characters we can buy from the shop or something. I say that because the character roster here isn't exactly the most robust of the DBZ games out there. We of course have all of the usual suspects: Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, you get it. And to the game's credit, we do have access to all of the relevant characters found within the sagas the story covers. All included, we have a solid 23 character cast of characters to play with, which is nothing to scoff at, of course. That's a great lineup. That being said, this isn't like a Tekken situation where each character controls and handles specifically and uniquely. Rather, I think there's something like 3, maybe 4 real character fighting style templates just swapped out between character models. For instance, Goku and Piccolo share roughly the same moveset, so playing either of them is nearly an identical experience. Of course, they do have unique special moves, but those are really just differently animated variations of the same handful of attacks shared across every character. It's still great for what the game is. I'm not saying this as a criticism. I think it works great for the game as it is. My real criticism goes back to the Legend of Hercule game mode. I don't hate the mode or anything like that. I think it's a fun idea. But was this really a better use of resources than something else? I mean, we're only working with a 23 character roster, 21 if you account for the fact that 3 of those characters are just different iterations of Gohan. Which brings us to our big hidden unlockable character, the Great Saiyaman. I do think this is a really fun inclusion, but I mean, he's from the Buu era. This is the only character we get from the Buu era too, but that means the door was open to include Buu era characters. And the one we got was the Great Saiyaman. Do you see what I'm getting at? Instead of something like Vegito, we got the Legend of Hercule and the Great Saiyaman. Okay, yeah, maybe they wanted to save Vegito for the sequel. Fine. Maybe they wanted to save the whole Buu era. But why not give us some kind of really cool hidden character like, I don't know, maybe Super Saiyan 3 or 4 Goku? I say this because for a while, there were some very pervasive rumors that Super Saiyan 3 or Super Saiyan 4 Goku were unlockable characters in this game. These rumors are totally untrue, of course, but they do reveal the issue that this game doesn't feature a really cool unlockable character. Our biggest unlockable hidden character is literally the Great Saiyaman, which is a joke. Before you come at me in the comments about Super Saiyan 4 Goku not having appeared in the US until after this game released, he was featured in Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, which was released for the PS1 in the United States like 5 years before this game was. Okay, maybe they really didn't want to dip into the Buu era, so then give me a movie character, like, how about Bardock?
There is nothing about this whole scenario that doesn't make me so disgusted I want to violently vomit out my own internal organs. I despise you both so intensely that I can't tell if my vision is blurry from my near-death experience or from my unforgiving rage. If allowed, once I am back to full health, I will gut you with an honest-to-God smile on my face, and then proceed to paint the home I built with your bodies with your fairy blood.
He was debuted in 1990, and the dub of his movie released in the US roughly 2 years before this game was released. I don't need a story mode for him or anything, but man, it would have been so cool to unlock Bardock here because well over half of the characters here are from the Saiyan and Namek sagas. So he would have fit in perfect here, aesthetically and tonally. A much more fitting character than the Great Saiyaman in my opinion. But what do I know? I'm just throwing out my thoughts on the matter with the massive benefit of hindsight, so take it all as you will.
Well fought! Huh, you freak!
That just about covers everything there is to know about Dragon Ball Z Budokai. What we've got here is a mixed bag in all honesty. There are some really cool aspects to this game that make it a really fun time, but layered in with that are some really bizarre design decisions that can definitely weigh the whole experience down. Before we wrap up, however, there's a few more things I want to go over. I want to take a look at the different cover arts we saw for Budokai back on release, and just give my amateur design opinions on them. So, Budokai, like a lot of games from that time, featured 3 different box arts for its 3 primary release regions: the US, Europe, and of course, Japan. First up is the US box art. Now, this one is super familiar to me, of course, because it's the one I remember seeing in my childhood. That dark red layer over the characters as Goku flies up front towards the logo. This is an awesome box art. It feels edgy and intense. Goku being in full color makes him stand out, and the red layer over the characters in the background helps to make the logo pop out even more. I love this artwork. I think they nailed the vibe of the game, and this probably secured a lot of sales back in the day. Awesome cover art. Then we have the European release box art, and as if to swing all the way to the other side of the spectrum, I hate this one. The background with Shenron feels super meek. The white Budokai logo is almost fading into the boring blue background. Goku is standing front and center on the box art, but he's in his base form and holding his staff from Dragon Ball, which isn't even in the game and serves to make the game feel even less exciting. Then they just shoved every character they could at the bottom and faded them into a similar gray-blue character design. Lastly, they dropped a thick white shadow around Goku's character to help him stand out because without it, he'd be hard to separate. This sucks, and I have no idea why it would be designed like this. And look at these character choices for the bottom. Is that Spopovich? The minor character who nearly beat Videl to death in the World Tournament? Why the hell is he on the cover art? Was he intended for the game at some point? He is another Buu art character. I don't understand. Why is he on there? Oh, looks like the European back cover shows a ton of Buu era characters, so they just didn't know the game they were making art for. Even if this art was good, it's literally inaccurate to the game, which is totally negligent marketing at best and downright false advertising at worst. Alright, enough of that. Let's look at the last artwork for the Japanese release. Damn, well drawn, minimalistic, epic. I like it.
Nice.
Alright, let's talk about the music of Budokai. There's a fairly strong collection of tracks here, all composed by Kenji Yamamoto. I would describe the OST as electronic rock music with strong orchestral elements. It's really fitting for the game, and the fight music can get you pretty pumped too. I like it overall, though I think it often fails to reach sufficient hype levels for the events we're seeing on screen. A lot of these tracks feel like they're just falling short of what they could be potentially. I know there's an immense amount of disagreement and drama surrounding the divisive Funimation score by Bruce Faulkner and Scott Morgan, but that music really set a standard for me about what Dragon Ball Z should sound like. Yeah, it's probably just nostalgia, but that music was so iconic. So the vibe we're getting here definitely falls short of what I think it could be. Not bad, but not the best either. That being said, there were a few instances where I noticed some of these songs sounding eerily similar to some other songs I'd heard before. Like, really close, actually. The one I really noticed is that one of the fighting songs is literally like 3 note changes away from just being Iron Man by Black Sabbath. As it turns out, Kenji Yamamoto has been accused of plagiarism, and not just for that song, but like multiple times, like a lot. I continued looking into it, and the dude straight up just ripped off dozens of American songs all throughout the 90s and early 2000s. I'm not going to play it all out here, but I'd encourage looking it up for yourself. It's honestly kind of hilarious to see just how closely he mimicked some of these songs. What is it about Dragon Ball composers and lawsuits around plagiarism? Bruce Faulkner had the same issue and even stole music from his own employees. Say what you will about Mark Menza, but at least his music is unique, iconic, and entirely his.
Step into the grand tour of Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z Budokai sold very well, totaling 2.6 million copies in Japan and the United States between 2002 and 2006. It wasn't received quite as well as the developers might have hoped, however, stacking up a lot of 6s and 7s for the total Metacritic of 67% on the PS2 and 65% on the GameCube. It was successful enough to warrant a sequel though, and the studio continued on after its release. Budokai did eventually see a port/remaster for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 via the Budokai HD collection too. This collection included only the first and third entries of the Budokai trilogy, choosing to omit the second. This version of both games featured a complete remaster into HD and adds in achievements and trophies for whichever system you purchased it for. The music is also completely overhauled, removing all of Kenji Yamamoto's work due to the aforementioned accusations of plagiarism and replacing it with music from later Dragon Ball Z games. Other than that, the remaster is very similar to its original PS2 and GameCube versions. Still a fine way to experience the game, but honestly, these aren't much more than glorified ports straight to 7th gen consoles. Dragon Ball Z Budokai is quite an interesting and unique experience. Between the really strange choices of how to tell its story, the odd game modes, and atrocious implementation of an in-game shop, there are some pretty drab aspects on offer here. That being said, there are a lot of really cool factors to consider as well, like the top-notch cutscenes, somewhat compelling combat, what-if scenarios, and really great voice acting. I wouldn't go so far as saying Budokai is some kind of lost or forgotten gem, but it is for sure among the stronger additions to the library of Dragon Ball Z games. And if that's enough for you to consider checking it out, then I'd say go for it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. This one really took me back, as I was such a huge Dragon Ball Z fan back in the day, and really still am, to be honest. Remember to check out SuperX and find yourself something cool to wear for your next PR attempt at the gym, and use the code EVANT876 for 10% off and to help me out with the channel. Remember to like the video and maybe drop a comment, as that helps me out with the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already and enjoyed what you've watched today. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, that's all I've got for you.
Let's finish with this. Final Blast!